work with the Oregon Health Authority, and we'll be helping kind of co-facilitate this special TA session today. So the topic of today's session, which is being recorded and will be made available afterwards for anyone who wasn't able to attend, is about the budget report template. And we specifically tried to invite providers who perhaps have not turned in their budget report template yet for a variety of reasons. It's not due quite yet. It's due a week from tomorrow, Friday the 14th. So if you have submitted your budget report template, you can feel free to hang out, listen, take it all in, or you can hop off and enjoy your Thursday morning because we are not going to be covering topics outside of the budget report template. So again, if you have submitted it and you don't feel like you need to be here and listen to this, you can feel free to hang out, pop off, or stick around. Totally up to you. If you have a specific question about your specific budget, feel free to send an email to the Measure 110 inbox. That way we can make sure we pull it up and can take a look at it before getting back to you, just to make sure that you have the most accurate and up-to-date. We have the most accurate and up-to-date information to be able to answer your questions. And with that, I think I will turn it over to Scott to talk through the budget reports. Scott, take it away.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. So I am Scott Peterson. I've been on one other TA session as well, talking about the same template. That was probably a month ago, 6 weeks ago, something like that. I also have Phil on the call with us. Both of us are from Deloitte, just helping stand up the program, providing some sort of back-end support for OHA, doing Excel work, Smartsheet work, things like that. Building templates, we've been doing quite a bit of that, as I'm sure you all know now. So we did a TA session a few weeks ago on this budget template, but this is really just to provide some specific help. If there's anything that's preventing you from getting it done on time, we try to move this along quickly. We have a tight timeline for the work we're doing over the next few months, and to get us to the first real expenditure report, so we report the spending at the end of the year. So I think we can jump right into the template itself if we can make that change here. And Phil will just walk us through a little bit how it works and just click on this, click on that, but that might be a little too simple. So then we'll take questions and just see if anybody feels that this maybe doesn't fit them. If they have a unique situation, feel free to email the inbox. But if you have questions about anything that is stopping you from getting this done, just bring it up and we'll see if we can address it here on the call. You can put your questions in the chat if you feel like you have to speak it, because I think this is a little more complex and you might have a very specific tailored question. We can try to take you off mute. It's a webinar, so you can't take yourself off mute. None of us can, but our admin person can do that in a couple of cases. All right, Phil, over to you. Give us a little walkthrough.
Yeah, so this is the M110 budget report template. I'm sure most of you have already seen this. Just a quick run through of how it works. You'll first go in and select your burn name. So we'll just use the example for this one. Organization name, that should be within your burn. So we'll choose good example. And then we'll take a look at these numbers that auto-populate. So if I am from the good example organization and my original budget matches exactly with, or my revised budget, it matches exactly with these numbers right now, I would select no from this category. And then the next step would be to prepare to fill in these, certify, fill in your signature and a date and send it back to us.
Hey, Phil, can you expand the screen just a little bit, zoom it in for us?
Yeah, of course.
A little bit. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Going to an eye doctor soon, I promise. But
Yeah, so here is what I talked about. If these budget numbers match up with the revised budget that you submitted, then you can select no, certified, and send it back to us, and you're done. If I am with a good example organization and these budgets are a little bit off, say, I have my personnel cost is actually $98,000, and my personnel staff training cost is a little bit different. I would select yes, my budget does require a revision. After that, we would go down to this next step 4, where we would select whether we wanted to make our revision using dollar amounts or percentage amounts. That is a user choice. So for this one, I will select dollar amounts. And like I said, my budget is actually $98,000 for personnel costs. I'll enter that in there. My training budget is actually $7,000. Enter that in, and then everything else is the same. So you can enter those in. And see, this will NT will match this one. So no more red there. I'm done filling it out, and then I can go fill in who prepared it, authorize signature and the date, and then send it back to that shared inbox. Just a quick step 1 would be to make sure you save your document using this naming mechanism. That'll just save us a little bit of time on the back end, so we really appreciate you all doing that. And then definitely make sure that you fill in who prepared it and who and your authorized signature.
Cool.
So that's a quick rundown. I think we can go to the next steps.
Yeah, perfect. So a couple things. So if there's anybody on the call here who maybe did submit a template, but you still got the invite here, it might be because there's something missing. Good chance it's certification. So we definitely had some people who filled out their template very nicely, and thank you for that, but missed the certification step that they were asking. So if you could maybe check on that, that'd be perfect. We can also reach out individually if that'd help provide some clarity too. And I know there's been a frequent scenario where you click on the burn name, or you want to click on the burn name and it's not there. Or in a different case, you do find the burn name, you do find your organization name, and you select them both, but the numbers don't populate. And that's been happening to some people. And typically it's your version of Excel doesn't quite match ours. And so the system just doesn't know how to run the macro that's in the background that populates these numbers. That's okay. You can let us know when that happens. And a lot of people have been doing that, but continue to let us know if that happens, and we will send you a pre-populated one, because we can select the burn, we can select your name, it will populate the numbers for us, and then we can send it to you at that point, and you would simply fill in the blue cells at the bottom, and everything else would look the way it does here in front of us. So if that's the challenge you've been having, reach out to the inbox, and we'll try to really quickly just pre-populate that for you. Just takes a minute, and get it back to you as fast as we can. But other than those problems, because those are typical ones we've seen a lot of, can we maybe run through some questions? And Kristen, feel free to step in on the questions here. But maybe someone has some questions specifically about this template that we can get answered.
Thanks, Scott. I think keeping an eye on kind of some of the questions in the chat, kind of some of the big themes that are coming up. What happens if folks didn't have any changes to their budget? Do you still need to do this? Send this back? And I think Scott maybe and Phil ran through that scenario, but just to specifically call attention to it, you do need to send it back, but you just select that no box. We're gonna walk through it. Yep, and then fill out the certification, rename the document, and send it back to us. The real reason we're doing this is, throughout the negotiation process, there was a lot of, you all remember, haven't blocked it out quite yet, last minute changes that were happening. And so we want to make sure that we use this as kind of the baseline for all of your budgets moving forward. So to answer, I think, another question that I saw in the chat, These original budgets do take into account all of the changes that were made in the negotiations process. So they should be those budgets that we took to the OAC for approval. They're maybe not what you originally submitted. They might be, just depending on your organization, but they do factor in any changes that were made during negotiation.
And I think one comment here, generically, we'll go back to the questions really quickly, but I think there's definitely a need for budget adjustments, and that's different. So that's not what this tool is here. And I think it's easy to feel that that's what we're doing. It sort of looks that way, but that will be something separate, and we'll try to be very helpful when it comes to adjustments. But and that'll be also in the very near future. But in this case, we're asking you really just for the approved budget. So before you made some changes, or before the changes, you implement any changes that you'd like to make, this is just what actually got approved by OAC. After negotiations were all complete and everything like that. Now, again, some people won't have any changes, but if you do, we're just trying to capture those. And then after this is done, we can do an adjustment process where you actually ask us, or ask for approval on some more ideal numbers now that operations are underway.
Yeah, and I think that raises another question that I've kind of seen throughout this the chat. The OAC did vote to delegate to OHA some authority to approve changes to your budget. Modest changes, recognizing that costs of services or goods might change, personnel costs might change, accounting for delays, a million situations. The budget that was approved by the OAC might not be what you actually need to spend funds on, and that's fine. We're finalizing a process to be able to approve those changes and document them, so that there is, a paper trail between you saying, okay, here's what the OAC approved, here's actually what we need to do, and for us to document that. And that will be, I believe, sent out as soon as we get this baseline for everyone done. And the reason for that is to try not to confuse people too much. I know we've done a very good job at confusing ourselves even. So we're really trying to just capture everything that that you were approved for by the OAC, use that as a baseline, and then be able to move towards approving kind of those just operational changes that are naturally going to happen to your budgets over time.
I see some questions in the chat about just not maybe having the template, or couldn't find it in the inbox, and maybe some got missed. So we'll send it back out now or right after this call, just the blank template again in case you don't have it.
Yeah, that would be great. That way it's on the top of everyone's inbox.
Yep.
I also saw a question about unspent funds. If you have unspent funds at the end of December 2023, and I think to try to answer that question, last week the OAC approved a motion to extend all the grant agreements through June of 2025. And so that extension would come with additional funds, but also, being able to carry over unspent funds. We just don't have kind of all of those details on how much funding will be available, what the process will be. I believe on Monday, we sent out an announcement about that meeting, and it included a survey link to indicate if you already thought you would be interested in extending your grant agreement. And so the short answer is yes, you'll be able to roll over your funds if your grant agreement is extended. But since that decision was just made last week, we don't have many other details around that exact process just yet.
There's a question I see in the chat about do we have to write? Does anyone have to write a narrative to go along with this or an explanation? And the answer is no. No formal written narrative accompanies this. Your expenditure reports that you'll be doing quarterly do have a narrative piece to kind of talk about, just explain maybe anything that's not intuitive and some nuance or things that are unique to your organization. But in this case, all we need are those numbers. And that's it.
Scott, and I see another question from Holly. If the personnel budget allocation has not changed, but we have changed positions, do we submit a modification? I think if that general bucket number is the same, then that's all we really care about. I know that the budgets were more detailed on the original submission, but we are just looking for those overarching budget categories and that total number. So we do not need a modification.
Yeah, perfect. Yep.
I do believe that we sent this report template to everyone on our contact list. We'll make sure we resend it today. And you know, I don't know if who at your organization, whoever at your organization is kind of authorized to certify, that's fine. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same person that signed your grant agreement. In some cases, it might be, you know, if you have an accountant or a budget person, it might be them. It's really up to you. But the box on the certification page that says, I attest that these are only Measure 110 funds. It really means that, you know, you're only submitting your budget for what you were approved for by the OAC. So you're not adding in a different revenue stream that might be also partially funding these services. So it's really just our check that you're attesting that this is your budget as approved by the OAC, and that you're not double counting any funds that might also be providing these services. I do not believe we have any additional guidance on the quarterly financial reporting. Scott, is that correct? Kind of doing one thing at a time?
Yeah, it's been one thing at a time, and partly because as we get information on the first thing, that informs the next thing. So once these templates are all in, then we can do the adjustment process that I think we're all waiting for. That will be kind of quick. So when we send out instructions on that, and there will be a form, it looks sort of like a survey, not Excel. Hopefully very user friendly, but please do that as quickly as you can, because that will then populate the expenditure reports, because the expenditure reports also have your budget information on there. We want to make sure it's your approved and also adjusted budget that ends up on those reports in the end. And then hopefully in November, we fill out those expenditure reports for data that for spending up to the end of September. And then we go from there. The template in a sense is built, but again, it has to be updated once we get your budget information. That's the only reason we haven't sent it out, but the process in place and the templates are ready to go once they get updated.
And similarly, the request to make adjustments to your budget template will also be sent out after we get all of these back. We are, I know, doing a little bit of gatekeeping here, but that's really to just try to make sure that we're setting a strong foundation and understanding of all of your budgets. And so more information about the adjustments process will be sent out, I believe, after this deadline passes. I think this is another theme that's coming up, is kind of what falls into capital outlay versus services and supplies. Scott, can you speak to that?
Yeah. No, this is an accounting question that comes up for accountants every day. This is always a tricky thing. But in general, if you're going to buy a property, a house, let's say, then I think that's clearly capital outlay. Typically define that the cost is being capitalized. That's not necessarily the case here. This is not accounting itself. So we're just going to say that category is going to be something like an asset. You've purchased an asset with that money, like a house or maybe a car. If you're making improvements to the house, those specific funds, if you spend $500 on a new window, that new window is not really an asset. It's a change or an improvement to the asset, which is the house. And so that would go into something else. I'd probably put it in a services and supplies cost, but it'd be different than a capital cost, because you would never capitalize the cost of your window. So that's my best guess on it. But I will tell you that this is your budget to own, and I think if you felt differently, that's okay. I know we're being flexible on this, and this is you informing us. But that's my advice on it, is think about the asset that you're purchasing. If you're purchasing a significant asset with the funds, then it's capital outlay. If it's smaller dollars, or if it's improvements and making some changes, then there's not really a capitalization happening.
Scott, there was a couple questions specifically about renters leasing spaces. With that, I think some of them, when we inputted the budget onto the back end data, we might have put that into capital outlay costs. But if that is something that your specific organization categorizes as services and supplies costs, then that's totally fine. We can work with that. We just, we wanted how you did it on your budget.
Right. I think we're trying to capture your budget here. So however you do it is going to be acceptable. I would generally say rent, as an accountant, rent is not capitalized. So I would put it in services and supplies, but I do understand that can be confusing. So if you're renting, like the capital asset is what's being rented, and so sometimes that cost gets put into capitalized cost, and that's okay. We're not gonna be confused by that. It'll be fine.
So I think there's gonna be still a little bit confusion about just the original versus template versus revised budgets. Again, I'm sorry, because I'm sure we have no doubt overcomplicated this, as we're so apt to do. We really can't help ourselves. So there was the original budget you submitted almost a year ago now, right? The December budget that you submitted with your RFGA. In some cases, that might be what was approved by the OAC. In many cases, however, during the process of negotiations, we made changes to your budget, either directed by the OAC because we had to make cuts, or because there was excess dollars. Both, if you didn't have any changes, your original budget and whatever was approved by the OAC, those are both now considered your original budget. And that is what is in column D on this template. It's really, your original budget, or it's your OAC approved budget. And so we know what was approved, and we know your total NTE, but we're trying to standardize kind of all of these categories, and make sure that this is essentially us verifying that what we have, that the OAC approved, and what you have are the same things. And there might be some little changes that have to be made because on the back end we didn't know how to maybe categorize some of your expenses. And so that's really what kind of we're looking to capture here. If moving forward, you want to make changes to your OAC kind of approved budget, and so anything that changes any of these budget categories significantly, we're going to send out a form after all of these templates are done that will just capture that, allow us to document that you've made the request and that we've approved the request, and then that will get auto fed into kind of the expenditure reports and templates that we're building kind of from this information that you're submitting here. And so that way we'll be able to continue to track it kind of moving forward for the quarterly reports and for all of those kind of subsequent reports. I hope I didn't make things worse.
It's a tricky thing. I think that, you know, the difference, like you say, some of it's just a matter of terminology. Original budget versus approved budget can be confusing. So ideally, this 154,000 and those details there in column E, ideally that is your budget right now. That was what was approved by OAC. I think in many cases though, it's just simply wrong and it's not what was approved by OAC, and it should be. And therefore, please give us the right numbers in the blue box below. But you know, in many cases it should match, and so don't let that be confusing. If it matches, that's great, and then just send it back to us. You could, instead of thinking about original versus approved versus current budget, just tell us, can you scroll down just a little bit, Phil, to see the dollars input? Maybe click yes, and yeah. If you just wanted to, you could ignore the gray box here completely and type in, let's do dollar. Yeah, just type into this blue box what your budget is right now. So not necessarily your ideal budget, that comes next, but just what did OAC give you by these categories? And so, yes, we're comparing it to the gray box above because that's what we think they gave you, and it may be right, maybe wrong. But if that is confusing, because it is, that's just inherently is confusing, just give us your budget by these categories and the totals in the blue box, and that's it. Certify and send back. And we can worry about how it compares to what we have on our end.
Yeah, we'll be doing that verification kind of on the back end.
Yeah, there's a specific question. I think it's an easy yes, so I just want to address it. It says our organizational standard for capitalization is a purchase of 5,000 or more, and yes, that's very reasonable. I think methodology to apply, and you can continue to do that as you execute this budget also.
Yeah, and we do have the OAC approved numbers, but people, not everyone used the kind of the standard budget template. And so I know in some cases, the costs weren't broken down into these 5 buckets, which is why we need to kind of verify that for folks. And we've tried to do our best to account for it. And that's why hopefully this template is accurate and reflective of what the OAC approved, kind of broken down by budget category, but we know that it might not be. And so that's why we really want to just make sure that we have these 5 categories correct for everyone.
The due date on this, just answering the question directly, the due date on this template right here is 10/14. Now the question is, what is the due date for budget revisions? So if you're saying when you tell us and you ask for approval for changes to this, that I'm not sure I actually know exact due date, but it will be pretty quick, around 11/1. So maybe about 2 weeks after that 10/14 deadline. So once we have this data, we'll put it into our tool, send you that survey, and it'll be about 2 weeks to get that back to us. But we need this, and this is important. We need this template back from you by 10/14, which is next Friday.
Yep. And just to answer a question about kind of unallowable costs, you know, and I think that would really just point you to your grant agreement to verify what the OAC approved, which activities the OAC approved you for. Make sure that you're following those chapter 944 rules that are cross-referenced in your grant agreement. And really just kind of point back to that being the template, and we can answer any specific questions if you email the Measure 110 as well. And Sydney just put this in the chat, but I'll just remind folks, if the template is not populating, just shoot us a quick note and we'll send you back the populated version to take a look at. And we will also send out the base template to everyone following this meeting.
And yes, everyone on the call will receive the template after the call. We'll send it out. Just make sure it's top of your inbox. But you'll be on the list.
Yep.
If you're in the call here.
I think Maggie Sullivan had a question. If there's a website or toolbox where all the forms can be accessed. We currently do not have that, but it is a very good idea. So, but not sure that we will be able to do that. I think you can email that shared inbox and we'll get you any forms that you need or help you with them.
And then I think for financial things, this is the only document you should be looking out for. So it's not that you've missed things or that they're piling up somewhere or anything like that. There were two versions of this because we had some errors in the first one. But they look exactly the same. It just wouldn't populate for people as often for the first one, but it's actually the same template. So this is really the only one we're talking about. There will be others though. It's true. There'll be two more, and then just quarterly kind of repetition after that. So I feel that we're at the bottom of the chat questions, but do we have any more? Anything on people's mind as you go to fill this out? Anything that seems confusing enough that that you won't be able to do it, or any technological problems besides it not populating? That one we're familiar with. If that's not the problem, email inbox. We'll just send you pre-populated, and that's good to go. Any other kind of technological issues you're having or roadblocks to getting this filled out? So with no Excel at all, you might be able to pull this into Google if you use that, if you use Google Docs. Another option, Bonnie, I'm adjusting your question here, Bonnie, sorry. If it won't run the macros, yeah. So it won't do the pre-population, that's true. Outside of Excel, it won't run the macros. You can just give us your revised budget amounts, just these blue boxes there, the 98,000 down. If there's no way technologically for you to get the rest of it to work, it works on our end, so we can always take your numbers and go do this template for you on our side once we have those numbers from you. I would say that's less than ideal as far as the whole process goes, but I think that would get us over the finish line, Bonnie.
Yeah, we can help you out with that.
So Bonnie, you're saying no changes, so it's tough because the changes will define on what we know. So what we think is your OAC budget at the category level might not be what you think it is. So that's one problem.
But we can send a screenshot of this as an attachment in an email just to verify that, and if there's no changes, she would need that in writing, and we can work with that.
It's a good idea, Phil. So Bonnie, we can send you a screenshot of that gray box up top, and then you can in writing just respond to that email and tell us, yes, that's what your current budget is or not. Someone's offering advice in the chat that most public libraries offer free Excel downloads. I didn't know that, but maybe worth trying it. I've definitely seen a lot of comments in the chat here that they simply haven't received it. Maybe spam filters are blocking it and things like that. So we will send it out right after this call. If you don't receive it in the next hour or two, then you know something's not working properly. So please email us and just let us know you haven't received it in a couple of hours. By email us, I mean email the M110 inbox. We can start trying to fix that at a sort of personal case-by-case level.
Yeah, I know the M110 inbox sometimes does get trapped in spam filters. So since I've been emailed a lot of you an attachment or two, if you're, for whatever reason, your systems recognize my email address as friendly, I can send that out as well separately. Whatever it takes to get around the little annoying spam filters.
So as the chat questions slow down, does everyone feel a little more comfortable about it? I know we'll send this out again, so you'll give it a shot after this call. So maybe that's when you feel more comfortable or not. But as of right now, don't mean to rush anybody, but just making sure we get everything answered that we can. I'm seeing a lot of recommendations for a website portal or something where you can go and gather all the templates from, and I think it's a good idea. It's something to think about for the future. I'm not sure we've had the bandwidth to develop that kind of infrastructure so far, but we hear your ideas. I see several of them, and it sounds nice. It does.
Yeah, I think our goal is to beef up our provider page. We're just haven't quite caught up to that stage. So for that I'm sorry. But we're it's a good suggestion, and I think we definitely want to make that page as helpful as possible in terms of resources. We can give it a few more minutes just to make sure that you have time if you want to get the question or comment in the chat, you can do so. And thanks. Then you put the our current provider website that is a work in progress in the chat. And it has some resources. We're, like I said, hopefully working on building it out to be a more comprehensive resource. All right. Yeah, I think we are done, Steve. We can be done. Thank you for being patient with us. And again, I just want to always just end with my appreciation for you all and sticking with us as we work through building a brand new program. I really appreciate all of you, and I hope you have a good rest of your Thursday, and we'll make sure that we email out the template to everybody on this call as soon as we hang up here.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye.